Welcome to the Background Noise Podcast, where it is our third week of Spidey-Mania. We have finally made it. In our first week, we're talking about the Raimi trilogy, the original one that started it all. And then just this past week, we got to talk about Mark Webb's amazing Spider-Man duology.
I saw those scare quotes.
Well, but our listeners didn't, so they have no idea. And so this week, we'll be talking about the two MCU Spider-Man films we have at this point, Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home, in leading up to the newest film, Spider-Man No Way Home, which is going to be out this Friday, December 17th. So,
leading up to the newest film, Spider-Man Home on the Range.
Yes, Home on the Range.
It's not always about the money, Spider-Man. It's about the homes we find along the way. Right?
And
that's a quote
the
from
ranges,
the movie, right?
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Before we get into that, I'm your host, Jack.
I'm Joe.
I'm Joseph.
And we are going to first off talk about just a favorite scene we have had from either the first film or the second film. Just to knock this scene out, since I'm sure one of you has this as a favorite, if not both of you, but this is still one of my favorite MCU scenes from any film, and still one of my favorites from any Spider-Man film, easily, is the Vulture reveal in the first one.
Yes,
that still
honestly
gets me. That it was a shock. It was still one of the most shocking reveals in a film, probably for me. Seeing it, I still loved it. Michael Keaton, we'll get more into his portrayal and him as the Vulture later, but starting with when he opens the door and shakes Peter's hand, when he gets there to take Liz to Homecoming, through when Peter gets out of the car, that entire scene, is his name Adrian Toomes?
His name's Adrian Toomes, yep.
Okay, so seeing Adrian, I don't ever remember them calling him Adrian, but when you
I remember him as Adrian Toomes. He's so good.
So you're seeing Adrian's in the car slowly figuring it out, what's going on. Just that entire scene, just the tension. It is so perfect, and it is still one of my favorite scenes from any superhero film, easily.
It's so well crafted. Just, again, it starts off, there's the pop song soundtrack going on in the back when he's getting ready. It cuts out immediately when you see him, and it's just like, it's that you get hit with that same jarring feeling. You know the character. What is it? You know Peter's feeling. It's just like, oh. I actually remember seeing this in the theater. There was a couple people who gasped, and it's just like, oh, no way. And I was just like, oh, this is good. It's gonna be good. It was. And just, again, in the car ride, again, a lot of people have brought it up, but again, it's talking about the scene auditorily, but yeah.
Sure.
But then visually it's great too, because of course in the car, once he finally figures it out after a little bit of poking and prodding, of course, but as he's kind of figuring it out, his face is sort of tinted purple by the lights that are passing by, and of course, purple's kind of been associated with his little business, the purple Chitauri cores or whatever. And then when he figures it out, green light, light turns on, light bulb comes on in his head, and of course it's the green light from, that's associated with the Vulture suit, which again we'll bring that up, but very nice, just chef's kiss, very nice.
Oh yeah.
I mean, also just like watching him figure it out, like as it's like it keeps cutting back and forth between Peter and Liz in the back seat. And she's saying, hey, you ran off like you always do. And he's like, wait a minute. Like, hold on. And then she says something else. Like, oh, wait, what? And
Peter's just like, shut up.
And then he this accomplished liar can just play it off so well. Like, I'm going to give him the dad talk. And Liz is like, oh, okay, dad, fine. Like, this is not, she doesn't know anything's wrong. And then
just
Peter's
don't use the Glock this time, okay?
Yeah. And then Peter's like, there's a little bit of Peter who's hoping that maybe he doesn't know, maybe he's just going to get the dad talk and he can laugh it off. And then he sees the gun and he's like, nope, we both know what's going to happen here. Ah, man, it's so good.
There are few scenes that I can think of where you feel just as terrified as the character. Yeah. Just as terrified. It's like, oh, he's going to find out. The question is how soon. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Like, there's a part of you that knows Peter isn't going to die here, obviously, because it's a Spider-Man movie. Right. But there's another part of you that's like, okay, but how much is he going to lose?
Right.
So.
And the tension is great because it's been well established. Like, Adrian Toomes as a character has been well established. What he's willing to do, what he's done, the fact that he's so casual about disintegrating people, even if it is by accident. And then of course you got Peter Parker. He's finally you think his luck's finally on the rise, and then boom, you're poof, gone. And then you get to see him finally show some of that intellect that he kind of had been lacking. It's like, again, when he loses the suit, I'm gonna say for both of these, the third acts of both of these films are like, yeah, I'll get into it, but it's like the third acts are like pinnacle Spider-Man. Just the first one where he's in his homemade suit and he has to rely on the things that actually make Peter Parker Spider-Man, that works out. And then, I guess he kind of becomes more actualized in the other one, but it's, again, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's definitely there are a lot of really good scenes in these two films. I really enjoyed both of them, but that one still sticks with me.
Yeah, that is the scene that I was going to pick. So I will have to go to the second villain reveal scene, which is Mysterio at the bar.
Oh, it's a good scene.
With Spider-Man. Because when you watch the first, unless if you know comic books and you know that that Mysterio is a Spider-Man villain, then you kind of are expecting this. But if you have only like the barest understanding of Spider-Man, up until that point, you're bought into Mysterio, right? You're just like, yeah, Mysterio, he is this new, not exactly Iron Man, but he kind of gives off Iron Man vibes, which is intentional. Like intentional, the character in the story has intentionally designed himself to look like Tony Stark. And then you get the reveal, you go through the conversation, right? And when you see it the second time, you understand how Mysterio is very gently needling at Peter in just the right way, just applying the right amount of pressure to get Peter to give him the Edith
right.
glasses. And then Peter walks away, and then everyone in the bar stops, and you watch the holograms come down, and everyone is like, okay, do we get away? And you're like, wait, what? And then they celebrate. And I think technically there's a cut in the scene, but that scene also extends into Mysterio's toast, right? Where he's building everyone up, and you understand who this person is, and you understand that he is a psychopath, and he is playing these people just the same way he was playing Peter, and he's very good at it.
It's almost this like meta reveal where it's just like, all right, I had him fooled, and I had you fooled too. That's right, audience. I'm looking at you, but it's very, very, that one was obvious. But again, even knowing the comics, I'm actually a big fan of Mysterio, but even knowing the comics, it's like, listen, the MCU takes a lot of liberties. This is obviously going to be a deception. And he's like, you're gonna pull the rug out from under you. When he like almost died, it's like, okay, yeah, he's gonna fake his death and he's gonna come back as a villain. And then when he didn't die, he's like, okay, crisis averted. Maybe he is real. And then it's just boom.
They pushed pretty good. Right, they pushed out his reveal long enough where you're like, I mean, in the comics he's bad. The question is, when are they going to reveal it? And so they gave you enough time to like him, just for you to then take that away. It's like, yeah, you don't like him. He's a bad dude.
you liked the mask, and now it's gone.
Right.
Yeah. Very very convincing mask. So.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go with one. That's what is it? Not a villain one. It was. I will say the Vulture Reveal was mine too. So Jack, you've stolen and dashed two. What is it? Two potential avenues reveals. So I hope you're proud of yourself. But anyway, my was it the one I picked was from Homecoming. And it harkens back to a classic comic book moment, but not because of that. It stands on its own because it's when Peter can, hypes himself up out of the rubble, and he becomes Spider-Man. Is like he finds that good balance for the first film, and he fully becomes Spider-Man, like I was talking about before.
Come on, Spider-Man! Come on, Spider-Man!
Yeah, exactly. And it. If you weren't convinced before that Tom Holland was a pretty decent actor, it's just like, I don't know, it felt kind of theater. It's just like, oh god, this is kind of uncomfortable, kind of claustrophobic, kind of stressful. And it's just like, oh, that's just because what is it? Kind of like the cinder blocks. The performance is holding up this scene. And I mean, again, if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's pretty good. It's a controversial take. Unlike the second one, this moment had a lot of good build up. Oh yeah.
Yes, that's fair. Because his becoming Spider-Man is better established in this one than his embracement of his spider sense in the second one.
You mean his Peter Tingle?
Oh god, I
don't stop.
I'm gonna talk about that too, but first I gotta wash out my ears because of that. I hope no one would say those words.
Oh, we have to address it since they never actually call it spider sense. They only refer to it as the Peter Tingle. So.
They almost do. I don't get it. They almost do it as like, oh, it's too silly. We can't call it spider sense. What do we call it? And then Jon Favreau walks in is just like after he's taken, I don't know, taking a ride in his golden limousine. It's just like, I don't know, Peter Tingle. What? Yeah, it's funny. All right, bye. And then they stuck with it.
Yeah.
But favorite scenes. It was a good movie, or a good couple movies before we dive into the cynicism. Yeah, it was just in general. There's a lot of scenes that could have been picked. I feel like those are common denominators in terms of scenes, just because they're so good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think. Well, yeah. If we're gonna do like two honorable mentions, to do honorable mentions, I would put in the. And maybe we can transition to talking about Homecoming through these scenes. The interactions between Tony Stark and Peter in Homecoming. The Tony Stark being a father scenes, basically. Being a grumpy dad.
Tony Stark with his what is it? I wouldn't even say his Uncle Ben moment, but no, it's not even Uncle Ben. It's very much Tony Stark being it again. It's like, oh, I sound like my father. It's like, yes,
yeah.
It's very much Tony Stark being a dad. Yeah, and it works out.
Yep. Not really wanting to be, but somehow still doing it.
Right. Yeah, Robert Downey Jr. was a nice touch having the Iron Man in these films, sort of being that father figure, since we never see Uncle Ben at all. Being that for the MCU Spider-Man, you definitely feel it, especially in Infinity War when he's taken away, and then when he comes back in Endgame. Even for those brief moments, you definitely feel that connection, and this film helps with that for sure.
And it works that he's not just Iron Man's morality pet or something. It's like, there's actual give and take in the relationship there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Something I thought was kind of nice. They didn't do a ton if just going right into Homecoming. We got to see a bit of Spider-Man in the suburbs, which I thought was fun.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that was pretty funny.
I enjoy that, especially, because I want to say there was one scene where Ned walks up, he's like, yeah, so have you ever just tried straight up shooting your webs and seeing how long they go? And he's like, no, I haven't tried that. And then he unintentionally does it because he goes out and he's running and he ends up on a golf course. And so he has to, because he thinks there's some building there. Of course, there's nothing out there. And so he just ends up straight up running because that's exactly what Spider-Man would have to do. So I thought that was a nice touch. And I thought that was funny seeing him actually in a friendly neighborhood.
Yeah, I was about to say this is no longer the Manhattan skyline. We're in a borough now.
Right. This is friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and his most friendly neighborist. So,
although, well, this is kind of a criticism of both of these movies. Every other Spider-Man movie is also very much about New York, right? Like Spider-Man's 1 through 3, and both Amazing Spider-Man movies are very much about New York. And these are the ones that are the least about New York, right? Because Spider-Man goes to DC, and then in the other one, he's not. I guess there's technically the opening scene. He's in school, and then they leave, and then the entirety is in Europe. So,
go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Well, it's just interesting. Yeah, this is the one where they say "friendly neighborhood Spider-Man" 15,000 times,
and then he goes international.
And then he goes international, yeah,
because he cares about all of the neighborhoods. Okay,
he cares about. He is every.
He's forced to care about all of
Spider-Man. Yeah.
One thing I think that is related to that. I don't have a ton of info on this, but apparently the screenwriters. I don't know if this was for Far From Home as well, but at least for Homecoming, when the screenwriters were getting together to first write the script for this, they basically made a laundry list of all the things they'd seen in previous Spider-Man films, like the spider bite, Uncle Ben's death, even just Spider-Man swinging through Manhattan. And basically what they did was they attempted to not include any of those things in the film in an effort to avoid the film from being stale and retreading on the same ground again. And I personally think that was the right move, since it had just been 3 years since Amazing Spider-Man 2 had come out, and the whole goal was to give you something fresh with a fresh look and a fresh take on Spider-Man that we hadn't seen yet. And I think they did a great job at doing that. So I will certainly give them that.
Oh yeah, they definitely differentiated themselves. They've definitely made their own identity, like of Spider-Man films. The thing with kind of the later Raimi trilogy, like there's like 5 films, like the Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man kind of go together for me, because again we talked about in the last episode about how kind of superhero movies were changing then, evolving a little, and it's just like, I don't know, they kind of run together. But I definitely remember, what is it, this is just as its own style, and not just because of the little added bit of the MCU. Is visually it's his own thing. Again, the fact that all the characters have been tweaked enough that they're familiar, that they're just different enough. Some of them a little too much, but again, it's its own. It's clearly its own thing, and its own thing is pretty good.
Yeah. I agree.
It's it's solidly in the we were talking about transitions. It is definitely its own thing, but it's also very much part of the MCU. Both of them do not exist as standalone movies. You can watch Spider-Man: Homecoming, for example, and you can enjoy it as a person who knows what the Marvel Cinematic Universe is about. But I don't think that you can watch it and appreciate it as intended just watching it. Right? You have to be someone who knows a bunch of stuff about the MCU. You have to recognize that who this Tony Stark character is and why it's such a big deal for him to be giving Peter his attention and time and things like that. You need, and then especially even more so in Far From Home, like the entire movie is about Tony Stark is dead, right? And Peter has to decide, is he going to be Tony Stark or is he going to be his own person of Spider-Man? Like, that only makes sense in the context of a post-Endgame where we're feeling the weight of Tony Stark being dead. So sure. We can argue about whether or not those are good or bad things. I'm just saying that is the difference here, like the problem with Amazing Spider-Man is it's trying to set up one of these universes of its own,
right,
and fails because it's not doing the work to build a good story first, and then build up a universe. And then the Raimi trilogy just is its own thing, right? Each movie is its own thing. Whereas,
right.
and then this movie, these two are on the opposite end of the spectrum from Amazing Spider-Man, because they don't have to build up a universe. They get to exist inside a universe. And you get to say that they get to get an audience that has the buy-in of the MCU going into it. Which, it's not, this is not necessarily a criticism or a compliment. It's just they feel different.
It's the way it is, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, right. It's the way it is, whether you like it or not. Yep.
Yeah, and again, I feel like Homecoming is, well, again, like you're talking about the post-end game, Far From Home. I feel like Homecoming is also kind of like one of these kind of tentpole MCU films, in the sense that it's like it's a good stopping point. Enough's been established that they pull. Well, they kind of the primary conflict of this film is because of the Avengers, not the Avengers the organization, like the Avengers the movie. Again, it's in the first 2 minutes, just like they're cleaning up after the Battle of New York, and it's just like if you're some random Joe off the street coming in watching the Spider-Man movie, it's like, I'm sorry, what? Who are these people? Who are these aliens? What is this? It's Iron Man. The heck's Iron Man? And then it's like all that, and it's just like an airport with just, I don't know, these other guys, and he's flipping around and stuff. Is like, the first 10 minutes are horribly confusing if you're just some random person. But again, it's sort of like, I don't know, it's kind of like walking into a play midway through. It's like, listen, what were you expecting? Kind of what were you expecting?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I definitely think, there are a lot of moments that it doesn't necessarily work. If this is like your introduction to the MCU, there are questions you'll have and scenes and etc. But for those who, I feel like most people going into this film had seen Spider-Man in Civil War, had seen most of these characters. By this time, the people who were following the MCU were full on following the MCU.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And so
true.
Yeah, so I think the only reason the additions for the things that were connecting this to the other films in the franchise, the only reason that would be a crutch would be for those who are seeing this without any of that context. But those who'd already seen it, I just think it enhanced the film, and we got great things like the Captain America PSAs and and the great scenes with Iron Man and stuff like that. So,
and I'm certainly glad it wasn't just fan service. There's a big debate on like, oh, fan service is awful. Or it's like, what's wrong with fan service? But it's like, I'm glad this served the plot. It's like, it's not just, oh man, they're using weapons from the Avengers movie. It's like, no, this is a plot point. It's like they're not trying to chase after like a MacGuffin from the Avengers or something. No, it's just these contribute to the story. They just happen to be callbacks too.
Right. I agree. Yeah. What was I looking at over here? Oh, I don't know what you guys thought. Personally, and we'll go probably more into this in the second film, the MJ reveal, not a fan, personally. That was probably my least favorite thing, just because I don't really care for her as a character. I found her to be kind of annoying. I mean, I thought she was less annoying in the first and the second just because there was less of her. But revealing her to be MJ at the end was just like, didn't really do much for me. I know what they were trying to do, and obviously they're making that be the love interest. And they're saying, no, it's not Mary Jane, it's Michelle, it's different, but it's still, that's the only love interest we're going to get for Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And I don't know, I feel like he could do better.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
You don't like Zendaya? You're just
I think Zendaya's fine, because like I've seen her in one or two films. I think she's a fine actress, but the character of MJ, she doesn't do much for me.
I appreciate, so I have a slightly different perspective, but that's because I appreciate people with like kind of a dark, dry sense of humor, and so her there's the scene in the beginning of Far From Home where Peter, I can't remember exactly how he phrases it, but Peter says something like, "She's funny in a kind of dark, creepy way," and like that, I have no problem with that. That I enjoy people like that. I enjoy people who are like dry and dark sense of humors. So maybe that gives me more.
You don't understand. I'm not like all the other girls. I draw.
Okay. Not like that. Not no. Go.
I get you, but you know I had to bring it up.
Sure, fair. That's fair. That is a fair criticism.
And that's the thing. I feel like I'm even fine with the dark sense of humor kind of thing, but I feel like that's pretty much all she did in the first film, and that was fine because she played, I feel like, a very minor role. But when you just get all of that again in Far From Home, which we're going to get into very shortly, it just becomes a lot, and I'm just like, it's fine. I don't completely hate her, but she's definitely not a favorite, and I'm not a huge fan. So
until midway in that film, she's still the same. What is it? Still the same from the last film. It's just like if you didn't like it before, like you did, it's just like, oh, I got to put up with more of this.
Right. Well,
that's fair.
Before we get into Far From Home, I mean, there are other things I like to hit on, but we can always save that for another time. I did have one or two quick trivia points, and if anybody else has any trivia for this film, please shout it out. One thing I thought was very interesting for the Spider-Verse fans out there, you had Donald Glover plays a character named Aaron Davis, who is taking this weapons and all that from Adrian Toome's organization, the Vulture's organization. He's looking for weapons and all that. That is the same Uncle Aaron from Spider-Verse who ends up being the Prowler later on. So if Donald Glover becomes the Prowler, that would be very cool. But when he mentions he has a nephew, he's referring to Miles Morales. So I thought that was a very cool shout out there. I didn't make that connection until I rewatched the film. Now it's like, oh, that's cool.
Oh yeah, so he's the greatest because he just wants to stick a couple people up, not shoot them through time.
Right.
Yeah, that means he's a good person, right? Because he doesn't doesn't want to disintegrate you across the multiverse. He just wants to rob you.
Exactly. He's not trying to help you. He's trying to rob you.
He's the Anti-Gandalf.
He's the Anti-Gandalf. Exactly.
The Prowler is the Anti-Gandalf.
All right, that's going in the episode description.
That's it. That is the description right there.
Someone please get a sticker of that made.
Photoshop Donald Glover in a beard and wizard hat.
Yes.
Get it done, people.
Wearing the Prowler costume, but with a beard and wizard hat.
Or get a clean-shaven Ian McKellen in t-shirt and shorts. Same thing.
Yeah, that's also the anti.
No. Come back here and fix this. I've got ice cream in here.
That's a win. We'll take that. I'll take responsibility for that.
Any more wonderful trivia?
Just the one more.
Nice.
Personally, I enjoyed the Karen AI in this. That was part of Peter's costume. I would have preferred if they had done more with SpiderSense in this, which we'll talk about more in Far From Home probably. But comparing the Karen AI in this film to the Edith AI in the second one, I thought the Karen AI was likable enough. And funny enough, the Karen AI is voiced by Jennifer Connelly, who is Paul Bettany's wife. And Paul Bettany, of course, is the voice of Jarvis. So it's kind of funny.
So we have that entire family is a bunch of robots.
Yes.
It's all connected.
It's all
Pull out the board.
Yeah, you're right. Get the thumbtacks and the string out.
Exactly. Well, before we hop into Far From Home, it is our halfway list ranking time, our classic segment that we've just started today.
Yes,
so,
of course.
Since with No Way Home, it looks like at this point, just from the trailers they've released, all of these villains we've seen before. We are going to now rank the villains basically from our favorites to least favorites. So I will
spoilers for you bugs living under rocks.
Yeah, basically.
Villains are coming back.
Basically. So my official list is Doc Ock is number 1. Number 2 I have is Vulture. Number 3, Mysterio. Number 4, Green Goblin. Number 5, I put Sandman. Number 6, I put Lizard. Number 7, I put Sam Raimi's Venom. Number 8, I put New Goblin. Number 9, I put Electro. Number 10, I put Other Goblin from The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And number 11, I have as Rhino.
Okay. All right. We have some similarities in the top, although just slightly tossed around. I like the villain of Vulture more than the villain of Doc Ock. So it's, for me, it's Vulture first and then Doc Ock.
Okay.
And then, of course, I like Amazing Spider-Man. So Lizard is my number 3. I understand that's controversial. and then Green Goblin and Mysterio, although that's a close toss-up between those.
That was
two.
hard for me. Yeah.
And then not necessarily as a villain, but New Goblin as a character. Like, that Harry Osborn is built up as a character very well. He's just not he doesn't get the payoff he deserves. And then after that, I have them in an order, but it's really just a pile. Venom, Rhino, Other Goblin, Sandman, Electro, as just kind of a pile of uninteresting, disappointing villains that are all like the extra filler villains in their own movies.
That's fair.
Ouch. Ooh, you're not gonna like my list then, Joe. In fact, I've altered it now just to make you angry. No.
Well, I wouldn't put it past you. You have some incorrect opinions.
Spite is my middle name. You know it. Anyway.
Spider Man over here.
No, I'm leaving. We're done.
No,
cut it.
That's it. Cut it out. We're done. Roll it back.
I will cut that.
I demand an apology, but before that, Doc Ock, the Vulture, Mysterio, Green Goblin. Again, that's kind of the top. We're in agreement there. That's good.
Yep.
Sandman. Yes.
Oh, gross.
Yes, that's right. Sandman.
Yep. Doesn't deserve to be in that movie. Get him out.
Sandman, Venom, not Topher Grace Venom. I'm lumping it in with the symbiote itself. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
New Goblin. Now I'll tell you later. Lizard, Rhino, Electro, Fake Goblin, and that is Dane DeHaan. Dane DeHaan Goblin. Yes.
Well, there you have it. Alrighty then. Well, hope you enjoyed that segment, folks. And
I did not thoroughly.
I thoroughly didn't enjoy it.
0 stars. Will not recommend. Okay. Well, now that we've gotten that out of the way,
I think we just lost some of our Patreon subscribers.
Oh no!
Wait, what do you mean we don't have any?
Oh no! Now we have negative Patreon subscribers.
We're losing money. The money that we don't have.
We owe money to Spotify.
Nice. I didn't know that was possible, but somehow.
I didn't know this could happen.
Hot dog.
Something I thought, just hopping right into Far From Home, something I think is interesting is if just at first glance, both Homecoming and Far From Home seem to be asking the same question, with Peter trying to basically figure out what his place is. So you have the first film, he's very much trying to figure out, well, actually, before I get into what he's actually asking, both films, basically he's trying to find his place. But what I found is, I think both films are asking a different question, and that is why they both work, even though I think one works better than two slightly. So I think the question in the first film is, where do I fit in a world with all of these other superheroes? What is my place? And in the second, it's, where do I fit in a world where most of these heroes are now gone? Do I replace them? Do I now also be a superhero in their former territory and just trying to understand that place. I think those are both two very different questions. And I think that's, while they seem the same because both of them are Spider-Man coming of age, I think they're both trying to answer a different thing. And while with Far From Home, from the second half on, I really like it. I think it's really solid. I think the first half is trying way too hard to be a comedy, and there isn't nearly enough drama. And by drama, I mean like important scenes. Like I would have loved a scene where you have Aunt May confront Peter Parker about being Spider-Man instead of just being totally okay with it. That would have been cool, since this is the first official time we have an Aunt May that we actually on camera knows that Peter's Spider-Man. So a talk between the two of them, I think, could have been very, very good. But yeah, I mean, I thought we got a funny joke here and there, but the entire first half, until we get the second act where he puts on the black suit and he fights the lava monster, we're very light on action or drama or anything. It's very much, it feels like it's just trying to be a straight up teen comedy. And again, while some of the jokes land, I feel like they're trying way too hard to be funny. And I feel like the jokes and the drama were way better balanced in Homecoming than in Far From Home. I thought they were trying too hard with it in the first act. I feel like the second and the third, I feel like it really picks back up and has an excellent third act. But that's my personal take just off the bat there.
Yeah, that's fair. Because I think the second movie, there's too much dead time that they fill with jokes.
Yeah.
In the first,
it could have been
half.
shorter.
Yeah, and then the closing portion of the movie, there's enough stuff happening that the jokes are like just kind of filling in the little cracks. Like wherever there's a little bit of space, they put in a joke, but there's enough stuff happening that it's not a big deal. Whereas they did the same thing in the first half, but there's so much empty space that there's entire scenes that are there just for the joke of it, right? There's the scene where he's getting the black suit that is only there so there can be the joke,
right?
The funny moment between him and Brad, which is then also only there so there's the funny moment of him almost killing Brad, right? Like there's a little bit of a purpose to that, of him irresponsibly using Edith, but they could have handled that much more of a streamlined way.
I agree.
So
yeah, there was a lot of I'll call them forced bits, because there was a lot of, I felt like the forced ones. It's like that, again, there was that Brad thing. It's just like this extended sequence of shoot. It's almost like violence, the very violent slapstick almost.
Yes, yeah, that's a good way of saying it. It's slapstick with grenades.
Yeah, no, seriously. And then there's the thing was, oh yeah, what is it? It's he gets called Night Monkey, and that keeps getting brought up. It's like guys, it's funny because that's not his name. He's not Night Monkey. He's Spider-Man. It's so funny. It's just like, all right, take the nail. What is it? Take the screws out of the side of my head. I get it.
Yeah.
And then again, the third act is just like, instead of it just kind of being there, it's a lot more natural. I feel like they were saving everything up for the third act. It's a little more natural. I mean, again, it's a superhero movie. People are going to be quipping when their lives are in danger instead of, cowering in fear, because that's not fun. But again, and of course, the Spider-Man quips come back when he's like tossing around drones and he's like flying up in the air, and that works because, well, that's Spider-Man.
Right.
Yeah, this is something I think Spider-Man works great when he is the one quipping, but it doesn't work so well when the entire universe is treating it like things like a joke. This is not a Spider-Man. This is not a Spider-Man MCU problem. This is an MCU problem.
Oh,
and the entire MCU has the problem of treating the fate of the universe as a joke, which means everything that might have stakes is undercut. And everything that might be serious has to be undercut. because they can't treat it too seriously because they don't want to lose someone who isn't prepared to deal with actual drama. So like, oh, well, we'll throw in a joke, break the tension. And so that isn't even a problem. That's not a problem with these two movies, either of them. That's a problem with basically the entire second half of the MCU has been ever since Joss Whedon made it work in Avengers, it has been a problem.
Exactly.
But the thing is, I mean, what were you saying, Joseph?
I was going to say, and then you have Eternals, which tries to do both and falls flat.
Yeah,
well, see, we were doing so well. We were doing so well not talking about Eternals.
Listen, this is the MCU. At least I saved it until it was an MCU thing. You guys brought it up.
Check it off your bingo cards.
Yep. All right. There we go. And again, I'm going to say the MCU-isms word, so you can check that one off too. I'm pretty sure that's B3. Yeah.
Should be B3 on most people's cards. Yeah,
probably.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, Jack, you were saying.
Well, I was going to say, no, you're fine. I feel like most of these films, or I found most Marvel films usually balance the comedy and the drama pretty well. You have some that are definitely more focused on being comedies, like something like Thor Ragnarok, which I think worked very well for it. But something like a Spider-Man film, I don't think should primarily be a comedy. I mean, especially the first film immediately after Endgame. I mean, there are brief moments where he dwells on what happened with Tony and all that, but I feel like we could have gotten some really good dramatic scenes, and they just skip over those because they're dwelling on the drama too long. They want to get to the jokes and all that. So kind of like Joseph was saying. So I wish we could have gotten some more of that and made it a more balanced film in that way. Also, I definitely, the Brad thing, the only reason they had the Brad thing was so they sort of had an explanation for what happened within those 5 years. And so we have a character who we can sort of look at and it's like, oh, that's what happened. But it would have been much more interesting to either, maybe have Flash is interested and we flesh out his character more, like the rivalries between him, MJ, and Peter or something like that, instead of just introducing this new character just to create a love triangle nobody cares about. And then now we're probably never going to see Brad again. And it's like, well, great. So
actually, if they had made Flash, if they had given everything that everything that Brad did to Flash, that would have been better, right? Because we already have an established character, and now we're giving this other character, we're giving more to this character as opposed to making another half character.
It would also redeem this adaptation of Flash Thompson instead of just being, I don't know, an extended joke.
Yeah. Well, there's actually great potential in this version of Flash. Like the fact that he isn't the biggest guy in school, but he's still a bully, right?
Sure, because he's got great potential as like an academic rival to Peter instead of like the jock thing. But he's just a turd. Yeah, and not the fun kind, like in the first movie, like the first Sam Raimi one.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. I thought this was interesting. I don't know if you guys caught this. Just what they do with the SpiderSense in this film is interesting. I'm not going to use the real name because we already used it at the beginning, and that's my one time. It's used Jack. Up, right? Exactly. So with the SpiderSense, I thought it was very interesting. They almost use it to a similar way that they use Peter's powers in Raimi's Spider-Man 2, is what I found. He doesn't use it much. He doesn't really seem to use it or rely on it much in this film. It's first introduced, if I remember correctly, in Infinity War. Like he's on the bus, he gets those goosebumps on his arm, he realizes, and that's when we first officially see SpiderSense in the MCU. So we get that in Infinity War and Endgame. So in this film, we sort of have people hinting at it and all that, and we don't really see him relying on it much because it doesn't seem like he wants to fully embrace his Spider-Man persona, since first off, he doesn't really know if he can or wants to be the next Iron Man, and because he hasn't really fully embraced who he wants to be, he's not fully embracing all the powers that come with that. It seems like that's what they were going for, and it's not until he finally embraces who he is, and there's that final scene that he embraces SpiderSense. We get that awesome scene where he's taking down the drones in that little deck area where Mysterio is located, which I think is an excellent scene, where he finally embraces it. Because like the entire first scene with Mysterio, he's still confused and he's just frustrated with Mysterio, and that's why he's not relying on his spider sense. He's just relying on what his eyes can see. And it's not until he has that talk with Happy and he finally, comes of age, if you will, or whatever you want to call it. He finally realizes who he is. That's when he embraces all of the powers that come with being Spider-Man, and that's when we get that great third act. And again, that scene where we see his spider sense really come into play. So I thought that was an interesting take on his powers and sort of the arc of that power in this film.
Yeah. I mean, people have talked before about how the spider sense in general is a huge problem because it is wildly inconsistently applied. Like, I don't even mean it's inconsistent between versions of Spider-Man. I don't mean that it's inconsistent between movies with the same version of Spider-Man. I mean it's inconsistent from scene to scene within every movie that it's included in.
Sure.
Of how powerful the spider sense is, because sometimes it's like you could have Peter handcuffed and blindfolded and have just put off a flashbang grenade near him, and he still is able to fight perfectly because of the spider sense. And other times he's fully conscious and fully aware of things, and people will catch him by surprise that he is currently fighting. Right. It's like, well, okay, would you pick a lane, figure out what this thing can do or not? So
it's like, is he able to? Is the spider sense him being able to dodge punches while upside down in the first movie, or is it like just the fact that it's visually kind of represented, kind of again between scenes in Infinity War? Of course, it was the hairs and whatnot, and here it was just sort of kind of like, I don't know. Meditative state or something. I don't know.
Right.
Just pick one. Like you said, pick one.
Yep. I mean, it kind of works as like a coming of age thing of like him coming into his own. It's just that but the fact that this power has been so inconsistent means that it kind of shortcuts that message, or not shortcuts. It
blunts it almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I'd still think the best use of the spider sense has been in the Raimi films, for sure, of the cinematic ones. But how they decided to do it in here, it's like, could they have done it better? Probably, but I'm okay with how they use it in here, as long as we actually, I don't know, see him using spider sense in No Way Home. That'd be nice. We actually get to see more of that action, so we'll see. But
I think the problem is, people who are writing Spider-Man movies realize, oh, this is overpowered. This ability is ridiculously strong. And then they have two options. They can say, I'm going to do the work to make an actually competent villain who can still fight Spider-Man even though Spider-Man has the spider sense. Or I can just forget the spider sense exists during this scene so I can have my really easy fight work. And everybody picks option B. Until
everybody gets the paycheck. Oh,
yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Was there anything else we wanted to cover with, or you guys wanted to cover with Far From Home before we sort of get into our No Way Home thoughts and prayers?
I got a couple notes, I say, as I scroll through my many notes. Well, again, I feel like you were talking about before. It seems like the journey with like the spider sense could have been used as almost like a good metaphor for like his progression throughout the movie. Like he could have there's always a lot of good potential in every Spider-Man movie, and I think everybody likes Spider-Man 2 because it meets that potential of, okay, how does Peter Parker react losing his powers? How does he do this? How does he react to that? And it's like, it's done in a satisfying way. It's like in this movie, it could have been, in addition to how does Peter Parker cope with, Iron Man dying and him possibly having to rise as another new hero in this like kind of unfamiliar world, because again he's been gone for 5 years, and that's another thing they could have played on, other than I, you know, it's called the blip, guys. But and then
yeah,
it could have been like he could have been the spider sense could have been going crazy. It could have been like it's overactive. It's like the fact that he's able to get hit is because it's working too good,
yeah,
or it's something like that, and he's got to fight using it, so he uses like the Edith drones instead of spider sense. Like, oh, this is like spider sense except without the migraines or something. I don't know, something like that. And then by the end, he finally controls it. Again, it's kind of been like, oh, harness the power within. Yeah, that's overdone, but at least it's better than taking kind of this vital part and just, we'll use it. We'll use it whenever. And let's focus on we'll use it whenever, but let's focus on the little Iron Man Jr. angle a little more.
Right.
And again, that is yeah.
Gonna cry?
Gonna cry. God. We're too in sync with that. But yeah, there could have been a little more time devoted to him trying to find out and doing it differently, because he was trying to, again, the whole thing is him trying to find his way. It could have been done differently than the first film of him trying to find his way while also dealing with this. But the fact that he's got to deal with Iron Man's legacy and all while trying to sort out his own stuff, and the fact that gets more attention than Spider-Man in a Spider-Man movie, kind of goes to the fact that this was three stories in a movie. It was a sequel to Homecoming. It's a sequel to it's
an epilogue to Endgame, basically.
The epilogue to Endgame, and it's a sequel to Endgame and an epilogue to the MCU at that point. Because it's like, that's the bookend. Marvel put out. It's like, this is the last one in phase. Was it 3, 4, or
I think it was 3.
There's even a cute little tag at the end where they show like 1, 2, 3. What comes next? We're excited to show you as like a little Easter egg in the movie. Yeah, this is the end of 3.
Exactly. So and because of that, because they're trying to do so much, which again, it's ironically enough a Amazing Spider-Man 2 and a Spider-Man 3 problem. They're trying to do so much, but they're able to pull this off in the fact that the problems aren't overt. It's like, again, these aren't nitpicks, but they're also not glaring issues. It's again going down to wasted potential. But I think for what it did, for what it was, the fact that it was trying to pull all this off, some of it suffered, but then we got Mysterio. So that's good too. And I'm going to ignore the part where part of his motivation is that he's mad because Tony Stark renamed his technology to Barf. And I'm gonna pretend that wasn't a vital plot element, and that he's just mad because he stole it and didn't credit him or something. Because again, that's like that MCUism undercutting like serious moments with like, you don't understand. He named it Barf, and then there's the pause for everyone to laugh, and I'm not laughing. I'm not happy, Bob.
Not happy.
But still, somehow Jake Gyllenhaal pulls that off. Somehow he does.
Well, that's just an actor quality thing. So
he's just that good.
There are some actors. Really. There are some actors that you can give garbage lines to, and they will still read them well. So,
alrighty. Well, before we do our rankings, let's do, I'd say, brief No Way Home thoughts, since none of us at this point officially seen it. It has not come out yet, so we have nothing to go off except for trailers and thoughts and theories. I guess I'll go first. I mean, very simply, I hope it's good. I really want to see them end Holland on a decent trilogy, because I mean, we'll get into it. I loved Homecoming. And Far From Home was a really good film. I didn't love it as much. It's not the best, but it had a lot of really good things going for it. And I mostly enjoyed it, and I would rewatch it. So if they could just give us something good, I'll be happy. And thankfully, with the villains they brought in, I don't think they have to do a lot as far as character developments. We've already seen a lot of these villains be developed. So I don't think we have to worry about that. some explanation as far as how they got there and stuff like that. Obviously, if they do some development, great, because I'd love to see these characters on screen. I just hope they focus more on a well-written film versus a fan service in the face film. That's really all I hope for. And if we get Toby and Andrew, then I'm throwing everything I said out the window. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's Toby and Andrew. It's the best film ever. So there you go.
It's the Spider-Mans.
So here's my thing is I am going in with the assumption that we do not see Toby and Andrew.
Yep.
I'm going in with the assumption that we do not.
I have to, or I'm going to cry leaving the theater. So
because obviously what I want is to see both. What I want, the thing that I want most, is for there to be a scene where all three of them are in their Spider-Man costumes and they're pointing at each other in a recreation of the Spider-Man.
Oh, no.
Yes.
That is.
We're saving that for Into the Spider-Verse 2, Joe. You got to know.
If we see that on the big screen, live action, this movie will be a 10 out of 10.
Oh.
See, here's the thing. Here's what to make it perfect. What they do is save that. That's like the final end credit scene. That's what you do. You save it for then. That would be cool.
Where the other two Spider-Men come out of the wormhole tunnel magic portal thing, and then Spider-Man's like, "What's going on?" And then they've all pointed at each other.
Yeah, just save it. Just end it right there. That seems much more. I feel like that would almost, depending on how they do it, that'll almost be out of place in how high these stakes are. But I feel like they could pull it off very well if they do it as a sort of last minute scene kind of thing. So it works. I feel like that is amazing end credit scene or mid credit scene material.
It's a shawarma scene.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I would say, what is it? Joe's full execution would be horribly out of place, tone deaf, and probably detract from the film itself. But it'd be funny, and I completely agree with him. But really, all I'm hoping is that, again, kind of how these films took the fact that Spider-Man is already well established cinematically, and we're able to do something new with it in Homecoming. I really hope they're able to, again, not just fan service. Here's Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe. They're back and they're doing stuff. It's like, again, take this moment to do something we haven't seen. It looks like they're going to do a little something. It looks like Doc Ock's going to take some of Peter's nanotech from the Iron Spider suit and finally kill that darn thing. And what is it? Hopefully they've already made steps into redeeming Jamie Foxx's Electro. So I'm hoping they're able to do that for the rest of them. And I hope they're able to and I assume this is just going to be another, and instead of it being what's his place in the world, is it as Spider-Man or Peter Parker, or what's his place as a superhero? Is it his own, or is it legacy? It's like, now it's, does he want to be, or what is it now? I guess it's the fallout of both of those. Does he even want to be Spider? It's like kind of what 2 was dealing with, except without the power loss thing. It's like, I hope they have a good, like you said, a good question there, instead of, it's the bad guys, and he's on trial for killing Mysterio or something. And I don't believe this stuff where it's like, guys, Doctor Strange is actually Mysterio. He's doing a 10,000 IQ play. No, he's dead. He's either dead or in hiding.
I'd love it, but we'll see. But yeah, I get what you mean. Spider-Man's finally come of age, so let's see Spider-Man be Spider-Man for a film.
Instead of Spider-Boy.
Instead of Spider-Boy.
Instead of Spider-Boy or little Iron Man Jr. Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
So, alrighty, well, to quick fire before we got to wrap this up. Film rankings at this point with the 7 films we've got already. I'm going Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Original Raimi Spider-Man, Spider-Man Far From Home, Amazing Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man 3.
How do you play Spider-Man 2? Never mind, whatever.
I had more fun with Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm just going to say it.
I know.
Joe, what's so complicated about Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, Spider-Man 2, and then Spider-Man 1?
Is that your ranking?
Yes. Of course. How could I be so wrong?
Exactly. Yeah. It's
me.
not that complicated, right?
So as we all know, I am the one who will continue defending. Unlike defending Venom 2 as a cinematic masterpiece, which is somewhat tongue-in-cheek and mostly ironic, I actually do unironically, legitimately defend Amazing Spider-Man.
The actual hill you will die on, not the anthill.
That is the actual hill I will die on. Yeah. So I actually group these movies into 3 chunks. So there's Spider-Man 2, The Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 1, the Raimi ones. So 2 Amazing Spider-Man 1 are the movies that are about something and are good. And then there are the movies that are candy, which is Homecoming and Far From Home. They are popcorn, they are candy. They might have a little bit of stuff that they are about something, but what they are about really is they are flashy MCU movies that happen to have Spider-Man as the headliner. And then so we have steaks, we have candy, and then we have rancid meat, which is The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3. So Spider-Man 2, The Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man, Homecoming, Far From Home, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, rounding us out at the bottom.
Well,
pretty good.
Have it. I think that pretty much does it. We've finally done it, guys. We've covered every Spider-Man theater release, excluding Into the Spider-Verse, which I'm sure we'll cover once.
Confetti fellas, is it pizza time?
I think it's
pizza time.
Yeah, put the PS1 pizza time theme in the outro right now.
Right.
Also, I actually didn't put out my real list. I just threw out a bunch of random numbers.
Oh, well then go.
I think I said 1 3 times, but I mean technically there is 3 Spider-Man ones. But anyway, yeah. Okay. Raimi Spider-Man 2. What is it? Spider-Man Homecoming. Yeah, it's kind of up there in the top. Raimi Spider-Man 1. And then let's see. Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man Far From Home, Amazing Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3. Okay, there we go. Yeah.
There we go. Alrighty then.
All right.
Well, we've knocked out all those. Hopefully we'll get Into the Spider-Verse once part 1 comes out. I think it's Cross the Spider-Verse part 1 comes out next summer-ish, so we'll probably cover it then. But looking forward to talking about No Way Home next week. So until then, thank you for listening to the Background Noise Podcast, where if you've been listening...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was doing my bit, man.
I'm sorry, the bit.
Well, if you've been listening, unlike Joseph, we appreciate you. And if not, no worries, because you did not miss anything.
Last minute call. Ghost Rider's going to be in the movie. I'm calling it now. Daredevil and Ghost Rider.
That would be an Avengers level threat.
Yes, yeah, that would be.